Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. It's true to say that almost everyone in the world wants peace. In war-torn countries, in broken marriages, in families where there's strife and argument, in all sorts of relationships and nations, people want peace. Jesus says in Matthew 5:9 that people who have become sons of God have the character of their heavenly Father. We know from the scriptures that the heavenly Father is a God of peace. This is seen in Romans 16:20. The God of peace will soon crush Satan under your feet. May the grace of our Lord Jesus be with you. 1 Thessalonians 5:23. May the God of peace himself sanctify you entirely, and may your spirit and soul and body be preserved complete, without blame at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. And Hebrews 13:20-21. Now may the God of peace, who brought up our Lord Jesus from the dead, that great shepherd of the sheep, through the blood of the everlasting covenant, make you complete in every good work to do his will, working in you what is well-pleasing in his sight, through Jesus Christ, to whom be glory forever and ever. Amen. Blessings of peace come from the Father and Prince of Peace, and peacemakers are those whom the Lord God uses to bring reconciliation to a fallen world. We as Christians should strive to become ambassadors of God's peace in a world at war, and aim for the magnificent finish line that is the kingdom of heaven. As Christians, we have peace with God through faith, and have been made ministers of reconciliation, so that fallen sinners could be reunited back to God and gain true peace in their heart. Jesus came so that the world might be reconciled back to their Father, and we are called to be his peacemakers. How proper it is that the citizens of his kingdom shall be peacemakers. We have been promised, when we rest in him and walk in spirit and truth, his peace will guide our heart and guide our path, for then we shall be called sons of God. The children of God must be peacemakers. It is by the Spirit of God that we are made children of God, and the Spirit of God is a spirit of peace. Jesus was a sacrificial lamb for our sins, for our peace. If we are not peacemakers, we don't have the Spirit of Christ. In other words, you must show love and work for peace. You must pray for your enemies, do good to them, greet them, and long for the barriers between you to be overcome. When you look at the state of man, is there not a need for this, a need for peace? Peace is peace for the broken and tormented minds, peace for terrible ripped apart homes, peace for a world that is dying. So if everybody longs for peacemaking, what is the reason for so much strife, for so much tension, bitterness, conflict, violence, bloodshed, and war across our world? There's a struggle day by day that is raging in our souls. Evil wants to win, good wants to win, and continually there's this ongoing battle. What terrifies me personally is the power of wickedness over our human heart. Some people I come across in life question my perspective and the choice that I make to choose peace over bitterness. They say things like, "You're allowing yourself to be weak in the eyes of others," or say you're easily a target to get walked all over. But I don't see it that way at all. As a Christian, I am proud of the way I live my life and view the world. I want to live with peace and love. The peace I maintain within me, I try to radiate to anyone I meet. But I turn away from these comments and remember Jesus left us with 2 commandments. You shall love the Lord God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. The first and great commandment, and the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Matthew 22:37-40. What is love without peace? What is loving God without obeying his commandments to us? As I mentioned before, we are God's ambassadors. We must show the world the love he continually shows us, not through violence and aggression, but with peace. St. John Chrysostom says, "Peace, be at peace. The more your brother wars against you, by so much the greater will be your reward." For hear the prophet who says, "With the haters of peace I was peaceful." Psalm 120:7. This is virtue. This is above man's understanding. This makes us near God. Nothing so much delights God as to remember no evil. This sets you free from your sins. This looses the charges against you. But if we are fighting and striking, we become far off from God. For enmities are produced by conflict, and from enmity springs remembrance of evil. If I want you guys to take one thing from my free talk, I want you to remember this. In a world of evil and hate, love and live with peace, and be with the peacemakers God wants us to be, because then you shall be called sons of God. And also you may bring back one or many fallen children to be reunited with our Father, reunited with our Father in his kingdom of heaven. Amen, and thank you for listening. God bless you all.
God bless you too. Thank you so much, Indy, for that wonderful pre-talk. One part that really stuck out to me was when she was saying that we are God's ambassadors. So we need to kind of show the world peace and love and show them what we're supposed to be. Before we call on Maggie, we do have one more thing, is social distancing. Don't forget social distancing. If you guys are close together, please don't forget to spread out. So we'd like to call up Maggie. She'll be giving us on God's calling and a commandment to be hospitable. So we'll look into the meaning of the verse where Christ himself says to us, "In as much as you did it to one of the least of these my brethren, you did it to me," and why hospitality is so important to God and so much more. So let's call up Maggie.
Okay, hey guys, what was your name? Matthew. All right, I'm gonna have a beef with Matthew straight away, because I know we've got social distancing, but this is ridiculous, and I want people to get closer. Is that okay? Can we actually try to come down, because I want to make this conversational, and the extreme social distancing is not going to help the conversation. Yeah? Okay, so you don't have to sit right next to each other, but just, yeah, that's a lot more helpful for me. Thank you. Sorry. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for inviting me. I actually don't know who really thought of it, but yeah, it's all good. All right. Okay. So as you know, the topic is hospitality. All right. And when we talk about hospitality, obviously, I'm not talking about, you know, the worldview, resorts, hotels. It's all really nice. You go in, they take your bags, they treat you nice because they're getting paid for it, right? So it's not the kind of hospitality I'm actually talking about. So before I start, my disclaimer is this. This is my disclaimer. I don't really know much, all right? So I don't know why I'm here. You get me up in a laboratory and I talk about anatomy all day long. I can do that, but when it comes to this, I really don't know much. So I rely on, you know, the sermons we listen to and the church fathers and all this sort of stuff to just learn anything that I know. So I don't know much. And I don't know your faces pretty much. So I'm a stranger to you and you're a stranger to me. But hopefully by the end of the talk, we can kind of be friends, or, you know, at least not strangers, because that's the whole point. All right, so as I said, the disclaimer is I really don't know much, and so I scab stories and, you know, I listen to other people's sermons and abunas and stuff. So I'm going to start with a cute little story. Okay, no Father, Son, Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Okay, so this cute little story, and I got it from some other priest, some American priest or something, so you may have heard it before, maybe not. So one time a priest and abuna decided to test his congregation's hospitality. You know, he just wants to see how good are these guys at, you know, greeting people and welcoming them into their homes and all that sort of stuff. So, so he says, you know what? He says to the congregation one day, he goes, guys, I'm going to start visiting you and you're not going to know. I'm just going to just knock on the door whenever, and I want to see how you react to my unexpected visits, right? I don't know about you guys, but when I was growing up, if Abuna said he was coming over, my mom took out the best china, we got the tea, the biscuits, you know, all the good stuff for Abuna. So we didn't do unexpected visits. But this priest decided he was going to visit his people unexpectedly. So he starts to visit unexpectedly, and one Saturday he goes to a home. He knocks on the door, nobody answers. He knocks again, nobody answers. And he's like, you know, I get a vibe that somebody's home. You know, I can hear some noise, there's a window open, there's some rattling, somebody's home. So he gets a little bit frustrated that nobody's responding. So he takes out his business card he has a kula bune as a business card. So he takes out his business card, and on the back of the business card, he writes Revelations 3:20, and he leaves the card at the door. Okay? Now, I'm going to start with what Revelations 3:20 is. If you know it, finish it for me, okay? All right? Revelations 3:20 says, "Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice," yeah, that was a good one, stands at the door and knock. Yeah, that was good. "If anyone hears my voice and does what? Opens the door, yeah? What? I will come into him and dine with him and he with me." Okay? So he leaves that cute little note at the door. And then he leaves. He's a little bit frustrated, the priest, that they didn't open the door. But anyway, he just leaves. Second day, it's Sunday, and everyone's at church. He finishes the service. The deacon comes over with the offering plate. And he says, I think there's something in here that's yours. Right? So he takes out the card. It's his card, his business card. And it's the exact same one he'd left at the door of the people the day before. Because he turns it over and says Revelations 3:20. That's his writing. And just underneath Revelations 3:20, it says Genesis 3:10. I don't expect any of you to remember what Genesis 3:10 is. But Genesis 3:10 says this: "I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked and I hid myself." End of the story. Okay. So the moral of that story is Abuna probably shouldn't come unexpected. So notice is good. I expected a bigger laugh, guys. Come on. Help me out here. Like, serious. All right. Anyway, so as I said, we're talking about hospitality. So let's at least start to establish what does hospitality mean. So if I said to you, what is hospitality? What comes to your mind? Don't say resorts, hotels. Hospitality. What's hospitality? Yeah, give me more. Serving? Going out of your way to help somebody. I like that. Anything else? Hospitality. What is it to be hospitable? Yeah. Welcoming. I love that word. That's the best. Yeah. Do you all have a welcome mat outside your front door at home? Well, go get one. Come on. Welcome mats. They're a big thing. All right? Get a welcome mat at your front door. Okay? Anything else? Hospitality? No? What is it to be hospitable?
Making them comfortable, making them feel comfortable.
Yeah. Feeding the guests, making them, he's got the microphone, guys. So feeding guests, making them comfortable. Yeah. Do you have something else to say? Yeah. I think she's is it a he or she? I can't tell. My eyes are going to win the prize for the night. You have something else to say? No? Okay. Yeah. Being friendly. Yeah. Cool. I like that. Being friendly. Good. All right. So when you look up, is he applauding himself? That's okay. That's okay. Yeah, it's a good encouragement, self-encouragement. Okay, so when you look up the actual definition of hospitality, it pretty much says the friendly and generous reception and entertainment of guests, visitors, or strangers. Okay, that's kind of hospitality, right? Okay. But I think for us, I want to look deeper into hospitality because I think for us, especially as Christians, it has a deeper meaning, and I think it's way more important than just entertaining guests. I think it's way more important than that, and I want to delve deeper into that. So I want to ask you, so to me personally, I think when we talk about being hospitable and welcoming people, it's not just saying, oh, hey, come on in, you've invited them to your home and they come in and you treat them nice, right? It's more about welcoming them, with openness, with kindness, welcoming them into your life, sharing your resources with people, welcoming the people that might not get welcomed in other places. Yeah. So it's really opening up to the stranger through kindness, through openness. And what's really important as well is welcoming people without thinking about who they are, where they're from, what they're about. You just welcome people. Okay. So you welcome people as they are, okay, wherever they are. So it's not for me to decide who gets welcomed and who doesn't. I need to be open to welcome everybody into my life, into my home. And if I can't share that, if I can't share my home, if I can't share my life, if I can't share that with people, then how can I ever hope to share my faith with anyone? Yeah? If you can't be welcoming and open to strangers, right? To the poor, to the lame, to the sick, to the stranger, to the weirdo, to whatever, then you can't be able to share, you won't be able to share anything, and that includes your faith. So often we want to welcome people, like, at church, like we want to welcome people, but it's like on my terms. Yeah. So you may have seen this happen where somebody comes into the church, there might be a stranger, they're coming through the back or something. And before we welcome them, we want them to fit in. Yeah. We want them to change. We want them to suit us. And then we're like, yeah. Come on in. Yeah, be part of the church. But hey, you need to change your top. But hey, you need to cut your hair. But hey, you see where I'm going with this? No, that's not what Christ wants from us, and that's not real hospitality. That's hospitality with conditions. I will welcome you if, and only if. And that's not what real hospitality is, okay? That's not the welcoming and openness that we have to provide. That's not what we're about. So if we talk about hospitality as in welcoming strangers, we have to define what's a stranger. Am I a stranger? Yeah, I'm a stranger to you guys. So is it somebody what is it? What's a stranger? Somebody you haven't seen before? What would you say? Who's a stranger? Yeah. Wow. Can you come and sit at the front like you're the best student of the day? You're it, dude. What's a stranger? Tell me. Yeah, exactly. I love that. See? You guys all knew the answer, but nobody had the guts to say it. Thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate that. God sent you for me. All right. So really it's somebody you haven't seen before, somebody you don't know, Sometimes it's somebody who looks different. So I'm looking around. Most of you kind of look a little bit like me. You're much younger, yeah, okay, but like you look a little bit like me, dark, curly hair, that sort of thing. But then we have other people that come into our lives that we meet on a daily basis who are strangers, all right? People who may look different, people who show up to the church and they, who's that? You're not really sure, okay? So I'm going to give you a couple of scenarios. So imagine somebody walking into the church one Sunday in the back and they look like me, because I've seen this happen at church sometimes, and somebody kind of looks like me, so they look Coptic, and you know what, everybody just goes, oh, I haven't seen that guy before. That's okay, he looks Coptic, it's okay, he knows what he's doing, he's cool, he's chill, whatever. You know nothing about this person. You know nothing. He looks Coptic, but he's a stranger. He hasn't come into your church before. You have not seen him before. Does that mean you get to kind of ignore him because he just looks like everybody else? Yeah? Take another scenario. You have somebody who comes into the church who's clearly not Coptic. Do you think that these two situations are really different? Or how would you, like if this happened here, how do you find that you guys deal with these two different situations? Anything? Anybody? Think about it. If I'm going to be stereotypical, but if, a blonde person walked in, white blonde person walked in, okay, would they be treated differently? And would you handle them differently as a stranger than you would handle somebody who looked like me walking in? Yes? Tell me why and what you would do. You gotta speak up. Oh, Mark over, he's got a microphone. He's gonna run around. The thing that kills me is I can see everybody's mind and they're thinking it and nobody wants to say.
Well, if someone doesn't look like they're part of the church, then, I think it just comes down to, like, as a basis, it comes down to more of like a sense of duty instead of hospitality, and then it can grow into hospitality. But, you know, when you see someone that does look like you, you know, and then you might see them interacting with someone else, you might just think that they're just part of the church.
Yeah, so I agree with you. Like, you tend to, somebody who looks like us, like the Coptic people in the church, you kind of be like, whatever.
Because a lot of people, like especially from the Orthodox community that grew up like in an Egyptian household, tend to have sort of similar features, you know, darker skin, darker hair,
Yeah.
darker eyes, etc., etc.
Yeah. So you tend to make more of an effort, you think, if somebody, like I said, a blonde white person walked in,
Yeah.
you kind of make more of an effort. Yeah.
Mm.
No, I agree with you. And I see it happen all the time, okay? But a stranger is a stranger. Whether they look like me or they don't look like me, whatever, if you haven't seen them before, then they're a stranger to you. Don't make assumptions. Don't assume, like we assume, they look Coptic, they're probably Coptic, and they probably got brought up in the Coptic church. But you don't know what's happened in their life. You don't know if they've been far away from church. You don't know if they've come from another country. We don't know anything about them. So I think we have to start thinking in terms of somebody I haven't seen before, then yeah, my job to be hospitable to that person, regardless of kind of how they look, okay? So we like to think that we're actually like hospitable, don't we? Like we like to think, you know, Egyptians like to think, you know, even when you read up things about Egypt, they go, oh, they're amazing people, they're hospitable, and they'll welcome you and feed you kushari, and, you know, all this sort of stuff. So we like to think we're hospitable people. Okay, but we need to, like, if I can say, we need to actually convict ourselves and be like, are we really hospitable people? Because in my lifetime, I've seen many people come to the church, maybe a week or two, people are really nice to them, and then these people disappear and they don't come back. If you ever meet them down the track and you talk to them about why, I wasn't feeling like I didn't fit in, people didn't make an effort, I didn't feel comfortable, I wasn't really shown a lot of love, I didn't feel welcomed, okay? And I hear this time and time again. So it's something that we need to have in the back of our minds, that whatever we're doing, we need to change it. If we're doing it good, we need to up it. If we're not doing it, then we need to do it. We need to get our act together. So I'll tell you a little experiment that somebody did, and again, it's from an Abuna somewhere in the States. So a little experiment somebody did. So he decided to do a little bit of an experiment. And so he decided to visit 18 different churches. So he came in, like say from that back door there, came in, he was dressed neatly, had a big smile on his face, walked in the back door, he walked around like that, and he basically walked to the front, is that where you're sitting? Yeah? So that basically everybody on this side got to see him. Then he gets up and he walks that way and goes around so that everybody on this side got to see him. Okay, he did that in 18 churches. And every time he went to a different church, he made sure that he picked on somebody like Mark and said, hey, dude, where's the bathroom? Right? I don't know, Mark. Mark. So he said, like, where's the bathroom? Okay. Andrew? Is that correct? Okay, good. That was a while ago, but I got it. And then he sees Andrew and he goes, oh, Andrew, what time does the service finish? You know? So he made sure that every church he went to actually had, he had a communication with somebody, even if it was about asking a question, okay? And then, obviously, like an experiment, he had to have a method, and he collected data, okay? They say data. Anyway, so he had a point system for this thing. So if somebody smiled back, so if Mark smiled back, he'd give the church 10 points, yeah? If Andrew introduced himself, he'd give the church another 10 points, okay? If somebody actually went out of their way to introduce him to somebody else, all of a sudden the church got 100 points, right? If he was asked to go out for a coffee or taken to the church canteen for a coffee, 1,000 points. If like, wow, somebody actually took him and said, hey, this is a Buna, 2,000 points, right? And another 2,000 points if Mark introduced him to Abanob and Bishoy and Marina and Monica, and then they just kept collecting points. Okay, 18 churches. Let me ask you, ponder it in your head, don't answer me. How do you think you guys would go in this point system? Just think about it. How would you go in the point system? 10 points? Would you smile? Would you introduce him to a Buna and collect 2,000 points? Yeah, think about it in your head. Anyway, so he went to 18 churches. 11 out of the 18 churches got less than 100 points. 11 out of 18 got less than 100 points. 5 got less than 20 points. That would mean probably maybe one person smiled back. Now, don't forget, he walked in, did a little lap around the church, smiled all the way, like, cheesy grin like that, and one person smiled back in 5 of the churches, so they got 10 points. Now, excuse me, but that's pretty rubbish. That's bad. Yeah. I can't say the word crap in church, can I? I just did. That's bad hospitality. That's not good. That's not Christianity. Yeah. So we have to think, are we really different to that? I don't know. So we have to think about these things. So you heard the word xenophobia, yeah? What's xenophobia? You hear it all the time. Come on, in the news, media. Xenophobia, xenophobia, xenophobia. What's xenophobia? Come on. Far removed from the rest of us. Xenophobia. I'm moving away from the microphone. That's so bad. Xenophobia. What's xenophobia? Xenophobia. Yeah, you hate other people, but just any other people or? Yeah. Yeah, that's how people use it. But the word xenophobia just means kind of fear of a stranger. Yeah, so it's people you don't know. People who are different. Weird or different or strange or whatever. Yeah, okay. So that's xenophobia, right? So the opposite to that is a Greek word, and it's philoxenia. Philo is love. All right, philo is love. And xenia is for stranger. So love of a stranger is philoxenia. It's a Greek word, and we often find it in the Bible. And when the Bible uses the word for hospitality, it actually just says philoxenia, which is love of a stranger. So hospitality is actually love of a stranger. Okay? So it mentions it several times in the Bible. So in one of the requirements that St. Paul puts in the book of Timothy, in 1 Timothy, he actually says one of the requirements for bishops is that they are hospitable. It's a requirement for a bishop to be hospitable. All right? So he says it in 1 Timothy. Then he reiterates it again and says it again in the book of Titus. And he says again, the bishop needs to be hospitable. So it's a requirement for a bishop. Okay? He has to be hospitable. He has to be welcoming of strangers. He has to love the stranger. He has to be open to the stranger. He has to take in the needy and the poor and the lame and the sick and the strange guy and the weirdo and everybody, right? So he has to be welcoming of a stranger. So it goes by extension if we're looking at a bishop, and that's a requirement for a bishop, right? If we look at the hierarchy of our church, if you like, if you look at the bishop, and that's a requirement for a bishop, so by extension, then the priests have to follow the example of the bishop. So the priests also need to be hospitable, right? And then by extension, you got the deacons and the servants, and then they also are required to be hospitable, because really we are following the example of these people, aren't we? Okay. So then by extension, we, the congregation, the youth of the church, also are required to be hospitable, because we are looking at the example of these bishops. Okay. And you think, yeah, that's all cute, hospitality, yeah, that's nice, being nice to strangers and that. But you need to understand the impact of hospitality. But you can't say hospitable 10 times in a row really fast without spitting at the person next to you, at least, anyway. It's very hard to do. Okay. So the impact of hospitality is very important. So I grew up in Sydney in the 70s, all right? So I was born here and I grew up in the 70s. And the churches, I don't know, how many churches do we have in Sydney now, guys? Do you know? How many Coptic churches in Sydney? It's crazy, I can't keep up. Over 50? Nah. Sydney? Really? I was going to say something like 20. I've got no idea, obviously. So a lot. There's a lot. There's a lot. Nobody has any idea. Clearly, nobody has any idea. That's okay. But when I was growing up, there was like a handful of churches. Did you just check that? I'm going to let that go. All right. So anyway, when I was growing up, there was a handful of churches. So I grew up in Sydney, and I'm an only child. And I grew up with just my mum, and I didn't have like extended family and that. So I actually grew up in an Abuna's house. I pride myself on that. No, I don't really, but like I love the fact that I did. So I grew up with this Abuna's family, and so I see his kids as like my siblings, and I was basically there with them all the time, and they were hospitable. Okay, this priest had his house open for everybody. All right. You could be, open to young and old, poor, rich. People would be coming from overseas, because around that time, all these Coptic people kept coming from overseas. And he'd open his house. He always had a spare room for the people coming from overseas. Give them a hand until they get their act together and kind of move out. And then it gets replaced by somebody else coming from overseas. If you got kicked out of your home, he had a spare room for you. His house was open. He was an exemplary. It was exemplary for his children to see this example of this hospitality, right? He was just amazing. His house was open. So his children learnt from that example, and lucky for me, I got to benefit from his hospitality, because then I kind of got this family, I got to have Christmas with other people and stuff like that, which was really good. But the hospitality was phenomenal, and the impact is phenomenal. Because then he opens his home, and people come into this home and they feel loved and they feel taken care of. And then they get to see an interaction of a real Christian family. How do families interact? People get to see that. How does a Christian marriage interact? And people get to see that because he opened his home to all these people. So people got to see all these beautiful things. People got to be part of, Bible discussions and Bible studies and prayer meetings. And it was such an opportunity. His hospitality was an opportunity for people to live a Christian life in his home, for people to see an example of what Christian service is like, right? And so his children grew up with that in their lives every day, seeing their father this way every day, having his heart and home open, that the fruits of that are in his children and his grandchildren today. Do you see what I mean? The impact of that hospitality? It's not just about, it reaches far and wide. So being in his house like that all the time and breaking bread with him, it's like having Christ in the midst of us. Breaking bread, it's like seeing Christ there. You know him in the breaking of bread. And that's what we did in this Abuna's house. Just his example of hospitality. I will tell you right now, if not for them, I don't know if I'd be standing here. That's the impact of a family that is hospitable. Okay. All right. So, when Jesus was here, got the icon up, thank you for that. So Jesus was teaching all over the place, right? And he was very popular for a while anyway, because he was a real novelty for people. It's like, this strange dude, he's walking around, he's got these followers, he does these miracles, he's teaching weird stuff. He actually tells off some of the Pharisees when they're trying to misbehave. So he was a real novelty for these people. So a lot of people were interested to get to know him. And obviously we read in the Bible that some of them just wanted to pick on him and find fault with him and things like that. So he gets invited to, and some of you remember the story, he gets invited to a Pharisee's house, okay? And it's by invitation only, you can't just pop in. So it's a by invitation affair. And he gets invited to this Pharisee's house for dinner, and he's sitting there and everybody's vying for the best seat in the house. Everybody comes in, it's like, in the bishop visits and everybody's trying to get the front row. It's a bit like that. So everyone's trying to get the best seat in the house. And Jesus was getting invited all over the joint. Like, he was popular at this stage. So then he turns around to his host and he says this. I'm going to read it to you. He says, to the host, he says, when you give a luncheon or dinner, do not invite your friends, your brothers or sisters, your relatives, or your rich neighbors, all the popular people and that. If you do, they may invite you back, and so you will be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you'll be blessed. So invite the stranger, the loner, the unwanted, I'm, extending it, and the weirdo and whatnot. Invite all these people. Saying invite the strangers. actually not saying, I'm not telling you to cancel your Christmas plans with the family. So he's not saying don't have family dinners, all right? He's not saying that. But he's saying you're going to get repaid for these things. You know, when you invite, tante and uncle invite you back, etc. But when you invite the strangers and the loners and the crippled and the lonely people and the ones who don't have family and don't have friends and whatnot, this is real hospitality right here. And he ends it with this. Although these people cannot repay you, right? Although these people cannot repay you, because everybody else can repay you. Although these people cannot repay you, you will be repaid when? You will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. You will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous. So do you understand how profound that is? So this idea of hospitality is being hospitable like this and inviting and including, being inclusive of people is what you're going to be rewarded for at the end. This is what you're going to be rewarded for at the end. When you invite the stranger and include the lonely and the poor and the lame and all of these guys, right? And in Matthew 25, adding on to that little bit, and I don't really remember it off by heart, but I'm going to try. So in Matthew 25, Jesus is talking to them about the end times and judgment day, pretty much, okay? So he says to them, he's talking to them about this king, and he talks to the people on his right hand, and he says, "Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit what? Inherit, what are you going to inherit? The kingdom. So you on my right, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom. For why? Why are you going to inherit the kingdom? For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and, you know it, guys, come on. And you gave me what? Drink. Yes, thank you. I was a stranger and you took me in. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me." He says that to the people on his right. These are the people that are going to inherit the kingdom. Why are they inheriting the kingdom? Because of these things. Because why? Because when Jesus was a stranger, they took him in. And they say to him, "Lord, when did we do these things? We don't remember doing this. When did we do these things?" And he'll answer them, "Inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these." Did somebody say it? I don't know. "One of the least of these, my brethren, you did it to me." So if you did it to, these people, these outcasts, these lonely, these strangers, whatever, inasmuch as you did it to any of them, you did it to me. And this is why you're inheriting the kingdom. This was the sheep that were on his right. Can you imagine what he says to the people on his left? The goats. These are the people on his left, the goats. He says, what about them? You know what happens? These people on the left, they invited people to their homes, but they invited their friends only. They invited their family only. They welcomed only the popular, only the rich, only the ones that they could get benefit from, only the people that were going to repay them. So this is not hospitality in the eyes of God. So he says to them, you know what he says to them in the end? He goes, "Depart from me. Depart from me. Lord, when did we see you hungry and we didn't give you food?" And he says, when you didn't do it, the opposite now, when you didn't do it for the least of these, you didn't do it for me. You didn't do it to me. And so you rejected me. Now you depart from me. So this is the criteria. And this was actually my final word. And I kind of just, for some reason, brought it in. Because I'm a mishmash. I have no idea. Just bringing everything in. So this is a criteria that God is going to use to separate the sheep from the goats. This is a criteria that God is going to use to decide who is inheriting the kingdom and who isn't. So at the end of the day, guess what? What it boils down to is how hospitable are we? Our hospitality is what it's going to boil down to. That's going to be the decider for us about whether we're sheep on his right or goats on his left. All right. So are we thinking that hospitality may be a little bit important? Are we thinking hospitality may be a little bit important? Yeah. Just a bit. Okay, cool. All right. So speaking of hospitality, let me remind you of a story. So Jesus is, preaching, teaching, all this sort of stuff, and all these people are following him. And then one day a lawyer comes up to him and he says, Lord, teacher, how do I inherit the kingdom? Anybody remember this story? Do you remember it? Tell me what Jesus said to him. You got the mic, my man. Go.
Jesus said, the word of Moses. Do you know the word of Moses?
The law?
The law of
Yep.
Moses.
Beautiful.
If you do the law of Moses, that's how you will inherit the kingdom of God.
Good. What was the law of Moses? Do you remember? Can I start you off? Love the Lord your God with
All your heart,
all your heart, all your
strength, all your
mind, soul,
mind.
and there's an extension part. Can anybody help him out? And love your neighbor as yourself. That's the law. Yeah? Yeah, beautiful. So the lawyer knew that. When Jesus said to him, do you know the commandment, the law? The lawyer said, yeah, I do. He goes, what is it? And he said, he basically told him, what's your name, sweetheart? Jonathan? You're my best friend, Jonathan. Very cute. I love you because I think you're my little angel today. Anyway, so Jesus said, you know it. You know the commandment. And he goes, yeah, but Jesus, he's a lawyer, right? So lawyers are like this, they're sneaky and sorry for everybody doing law. My daughter's doing law, so they just, they're gonna pick, he's gonna pick. So he says to him, so Lord, who's my neighbor? Who's my neighbor? Does anybody remember what Jesus said after he said, who is my neighbor? Jonathan. You guys are all failing. Jonathan's not even passing, man. So what did Jesus say?
Jesus said your neighbor is not just the people who live next to you, it's strangers, poor people, and everyone.
But he told him a story. Do you remember the story? Okay. Anybody else remember the story that Jesus told him? I feel like somebody should have timed me because I'm not getting out much these days, so I'm going to keep talking until somebody shuts me up. What's the story Jesus told, guys? The what? The Good Samaritan. Yeah. And you're going to say, yeah, we know the story. Don't tell us the story. Okay, fine. I'm telling you the story. You know the story? All right. I'm gonna let you help me, but give me a sec. All right, I'm gonna let you help me. So he tells him a little bit of the story about a guy who's walking from Jerusalem to Jericho, and all of a sudden this poor guy gets mugged, everything gets taken, he's bruised, he's bleeding, left naked on the side of the road. Yeah? Okay? That's the story. Who walks past first? A priest. So a priest walks past, and it clearly says in the Bible, the priest saw him. So he did not see him, he saw him. Anybody remember what the priest did? What? Close. Very close. He walked over to the other side. That's right, he did. You're right. So he was on this side where he saw the guy, and then he walked over to the other side. He didn't even check if he was alive. Seems, bro. I don't have time. I don't have time to check on this dude. Not my problem. I'm a priest. I got visitations. I got, bar mitzvahs. I'm too busy. I know he's not what priests did back then. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. That's the story. Okay. I was going to say baptisms, but that didn't work in that time. So he's too busy. The priest is too busy. No time. It's somebody else's problem. I'm going to leave it. It's going to be somebody else's problem. Okay? So he walks away, the priest, yeah? Second person walks past. Remember who that is? Levite. You know what a Levite is? So Levite is basically what we would call like a deacon or a servant, yeah? A priest's assistant in the temple. Okay? So that's the Levite walks past. And that's interesting. What's the Levite going to do? Guess what he does? Because he's learning from who? He's learning from the priest. That's his example. What does he do? Perfect. Jonathan, you know what? You're the main man, Jonathan. So yeah, so the Levite does the same thing. He sees the dude on the floor, bleeding, bruised, could be dead, doesn't know, doesn't care, too busy, got things to do, sees, I got work to do, I got to do stuff in the temple, you know, all that sort of stuff, okay? And why would he do anything really? Because his example is who? The priest. Do you see how we all look at somebody else? We all look at each other as an example. The priest and the Levite did the same thing, because why? They're together every day in the temple. Who's the Levite going to learn from? He's going to learn from the priest. Okay? So he ignored him, and again, he walked away. Now, at this point, I asked myself, where are you going, Jonathan? Don't leave me, Habibi. I need you. I'll drive you home. Where do you want to go? I'll take you to the airport, whatever you want. Oh, well. All right. So at this point, we've had the priest walk past, the Levite walk past, right? At this point, I need to ask myself, do I sometimes walk to the other side? If a strange person walks in that back door that I've never seen before in the church, or if I meet a stranger in the street and they need help, do I sometimes go, stinks, man. I've got no time for this. I've got no time. If a stranger walks in the back door and I'm over there and I'm about to walk past that stranger, I'm like, oh no, a new person. I might have to say hello. I might have to smile. But Monica's over there. We're supposed to go out for coffee. No, I walk that way. That's passing by what? That other side. Yeah? That's passing by the other side. That's not, all of a sudden, we're just like the priests and the Levites when we do that. Okay? If I see a new person or somebody hasn't come to church in a really, really long time and I vaguely remember them, and I look and I'm like, oh, that's that guy. I haven't seen him in years. I should probably say hello. Oh, but bro, mum's got a soggy falafel sandwich for me already. I gotta run. No. And all of a sudden, instead of walking past him, I walk over that other side. Because, hey, let it be somebody else's problem. Seeps. Yeah? So this story, the Good Samaritan, could be, you know, the discompassionate, the lacking compassion priest, the lacking compassion Levite, the Sebes priest, the Sebes Levite, whatever you want to call it. Okay. But the example is the Good Samaritan. And what's interesting about that example is the Good Samaritan is the one that stopped. And when you read the story, and I'm not going to go through it, when you read the story carefully, he like completely goes out of his way, man. Like, I don't know anybody who would actually do what the Good Samaritan did, which is why Jesus called him the Good Samaritan. And he made him the Samaritan because the guy probably on the side of the road was a Jew. Yeah. So his neighbors, who are the priest and the Levite, didn't care. They walked off. But the stranger, or really the enemy, who was the Samaritan, is the only one that stopped and helped out and like took care of him and then took him to the inn and etc. etc. Like he went completely out of his way for somebody who's an enemy. Technically, you know, a Samaritan seeing a Jew having had that happen to them should actually be like, woo, we got one over them, you know, they don't like us, we don't like them. But he didn't. He took care of him. So we need to actually see that stranger or that enemy the same way the Good Samaritan did with compassionate eyes and actually see them as the neighbor that needs help. Yeah. So we need to actually look at it with the eyes of compassion, which are the eyes of Christ. I'm all over the place, like I said. Are you with me so far? Yeah? Should I continue or should I stop? I know Jonathan's gone, so this is going to be hard work. Continue? Yeah, all right. You with me so far? Okay. All right. So, now, when we look at Christ, and Christmas is coming up, yeah? So, you know, you go to the shops and there's all the nativity sets and you look at the nativity sets, they're really beautiful, some of the shops, so not all the shops, right? But, you know, I have a nativity set at home And just a side note, like Christmas, we like to actually sing Jesus happy birthday for Christmas, because basically it's his birthday, right? Why doesn't he get a happy birthday song? And so we have a nativity set, and we do that around the nativity set. It's just a tradition we started. You're welcome to grab it. Go for your life. I don't mind. We also get a cake. So just so you know, you got to blow out the candles and all of that too. So Jesus' life began, he was born in where? A manger, yeah. Whoa, he's so pleased with himself. Look, he's like, I got that one. Yeah, he was born in a manger because there was no room anywhere else. There was no room. Jesus, from the beginning, he needed somebody to take him in. He was a stranger. He needed hospitality. He was in need of hospitality. And Jesus was the definition of what you would call a homeless man. This isn't blasphemy, guys. Jesus was a homeless man. Jesus was going around from place to place. He even said it about himself. And him and his disciples basically, walked all over the joint, not having really anywhere to go. It wasn't like they booked hotels in advance. Hey, we're coming in tomorrow at 3:00. When's your, arrival, departure? There's none of that. There wasn't that. They just walked around and they talked to people. And if people said, come back to our house. We've got lodging, we've got dinner, we've got whatever. Cool, great. Thanks, guys. Thanks for your hospitality. That's how Jesus and his disciples lived. And Jesus says it quite clearly, because when a Pharisee came to him once and he was so pleased, Jesus is such a good talker. He was charismatic. He said great stories, great parables, and people fell in love initially, right? It was a novelty, remember? So when he was doing all that, one of the Pharisees was like, "Oh, Jesus, teacher, I want to follow you. I want to be one of your disciples." But Jesus looks at the heart. He knows what's in the heart of man. He knows who's going to follow and who isn't going to follow. So he looks at him and he says, "You know what? Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head." Right? There's more to that verse, but Jesus was also telling him, I'm basically homeless. You want to follow me? Great. It's hard. You want to follow me? It's uncomfortable. You want to follow me? You're going to sleep wherever I sleep. You want to follow me? I'm homeless. You want to follow me? I'm just looking for people's hospitality. We go to strangers' house. This is our life. If you want to follow me, it's tough. He goes, the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. So he kind of explained that he's pretty much homeless. All right? And he was in need of hospitality. But also, he was the best example of hospitality and welcoming strangers and looking at people and looking and seeing their need and providing for that need, not just, walking past. And there are many, many stories. I don't want to go through all of them because we're going to run out of time and you're going to hate me after this. So, but for example, he was walking. Who goes up in the tree to see him? Little fella, probably about that big, Zacchaeus, knee height. Yep. Zacchaeus runs up in the tree because he wants to get a better look. And Jesus sees Zacchaeus, says, "Come on down, get down, little guy. Guess what? I'm having dinner at your house tonight." Yeah. So he looked outside of himself. Jesus looked around. You notice that Jesus was always looking and finding the strange ones. The odd people, the ones who were lonely, the strangers, the ones who had nowhere to go. Anyway, so he goes to Zacchaeus for dinner. And he did that a lot. He also met somebody at a well. Do anybody remember that story? Yeah, the Samaritan. How do you think I'm feeling right now? Yeah, the Samaritan. Oh, he gets applause. Look at, Jonathan. Where's Jonathan? All right. Yeah, so he meets a Samaritan woman at Jacob's well. He actually goes out of his way in the heat of the day to go to Samaria. Nobody knew why, but he went to meet this Samaritan woman. I don't know, it's a strange thing to say because with Jesus there is no strangers, but technically he was a stranger to her. So he met her and they were strangers to each other. And yet that meeting between two strangers changed her whole life. And then changed the life of her community. Imagine that. Two people meeting at a well changes the life of everybody in that community, and probably through the history of our church has changed the life of other people who got to meet Jesus at their own well. Because remember, Jesus went to her. He didn't expect her to change first. He went to her the way she was. He took her the way she was, accepted her the way she was, and then she changed. He didn't expect her to change first and then say, okay, now I'll meet you. No. This is about what I said before about accepting people when they walk in just the way they are, all right, with all their faults and whatever. All right. So if you want to be a follower of Christ, this story, and I know the Samaritan woman is one of those famous stories in our church anyway, and we talk about it like a million times through the year. But you want to be a follower of Christ and go meet somebody at the well at the heat of the day. It's hard work. This isn't easy, guys. Want to follow Christ? It's hard work. Okay. So just imagine, I always say, imagine what our church would really be like if this was the sort of stuff we were doing. Meeting people in the heat of the day at the well, looking up in the tree for that little fella, the inconspicuous one that nobody else can see, looking around at people's real needs, washing people's feet. This is hospitality, and this is what we are called to do. Okay? And this is what we are meant to do. So there's lots and lots of examples. I feel like somebody needs to tell me how much time I'm supposed to. Oh my goodness. This is not a good thing. You do not understand. Right. Okay. So the Bible is full of examples. And I know it's strange because I keep using the word hospitality and, because we're so ingrained in this worldview of what hospitality is. When I'm talking about hospitality, Christian hospitality, yeah? So it's loving the strange person that walks in the door, loving the weirdo, the lonely person, meeting them at where they are and providing a need for them, okay? So, in the New Testament, actually, Jesus says to the disciples, he sends them out, he sends the 12 out to do some preaching, and he sends them out and he goes, you know what, don't take anything with you, don't take gold, don't take silver, whatever. He says, because a laborer deserves his food. And they are told that wherever they go to accept the hospitality that is provided for them. And he also said, but if you go somewhere and people are not hospitable to you, they're cursed, basically. And it's better for Sodom and Gomorrah on the day of judgment than it is for that city that was not hospitable towards you. There's lots of examples. I want to just jump ahead. Okay, a couple more things I'll try to finish because I've got no concept of time, just so you know. In the first epistle of Peter, in 1 Peter, Peter was writing to the persecuted Christians. And they were being persecuted obviously because they were Christians, right? And he was talking to them about the end times, and he was saying to them, stay faithful, endure, be faithful to the end, be steadfast, pray, all of this stuff. So it was really it was a really serious, moment because they're suffering, and he's talking to them about their suffering, and the church is being persecuted. And he says to them, endure and stay faithful and everything. He goes, but the end of all things is at hand. This is what he said. Therefore, be serious and watchful in your prayers. Good. Pray. And above all things, have, and some of you will probably recognize this, have fervent, what? Fervent love, mahabba, love for one another. For love will cover a multitude of sins. All right? But it's the next part, and believe me, I didn't actually pick up on it before until I came to do the talk. The next part says, be hospitable to one another without grumbling. Be hospitable to one another without grumbling. So have fervent love. Love will cover a multitude of sins. And then at the end he says, and be hospitable without grumbling. And it's very important that we actually think about this without grumbling bit. Okay, so he didn't stop at be hospitable. He said be hospitable without grumbling. Like who hates a pity invite? Come on, we've all had somebody, we've all had a pity invite, yeah? Don't you just hate it? It's like you come in, you see a group of friends, you walk over and say, oh, hey guys, what's happening? What are we doing? Oh, just going out for some coffee. Oh, pause. And all of a sudden somebody goes, oh, you can come if you want. Yeah, yeah. That's being hospitable. Technically, they've invited me for the coffee. Is it nice? It's not nice, is it? It's not a nice feeling to get that pity invite. It's not the hospitality we're talking about. Talking about real hospitality from your heart, not just, ay kalam, as they say in Arabic, which is like whatever for anybody who doesn't speak Arabic. It's like whatever. Okay, so be hospitable to one another without grumbling. So I'm going to give credit here to Daniel Mayward. Love you, Daniel, wherever you are today. Anyway, but he says sometimes you walk into church and you got that trophy person. Calls it a trophy person. It's like a person you've invited on a Sunday because they're different, and you look cool if you invite, the guy from school or uni or whatever it is, or work, and it's the trophy person, and you bring them in, and it's not about them. It's all of a sudden it's about you. Yeah, I brought in this trophy person, so you all get to see how great I am at this Christianity thing. I'm killing the hospitality stuff, and I'm just so good. Okay, so he talks about the trophy person, and really the trophy person is somebody that might show up for a week or two because you're interested, and then once they realize they're just the trophy person and you don't really mean it and it's not out of love and all that stuff, they don't come back. Okay, because really, if you really show love to somebody, if you really put on Christ and they come in and they really feel your love, who would walk away from that? You just wouldn't walk away from that. If you really felt welcomed, then you're not going to walk away from that, because you feel, people love you, people care, people are trying to find out how to help you, people want to provide you with what you need, and you're not going to walk away from that. That's just silliness. Nobody's going to walk away from that. Doesn't make sense. Okay? But you would walk away if you felt like you were just being used or something like that. Okay. I'm going to try my best to cut this down. Okay. All right. So this icon that I have up, does anybody recognize that or the verse, or have any idea what this is? So it's not a Coptic Orthodox icon. Okay. I'll get absolution from a Buddha later. No, just kidding. Doesn't matter. It's an Orthodox icon. And it's actually Abraham when he meets three strangers. So Abraham's standing outside his tent, and three strangers walk past him, and he gets really excited, Abraham, because he was a very hospitable man. Okay, also because Abraham was kind of lost and a stranger for most of his life as well, and so he understood the appreciation of welcoming people and understood what being a stranger was like. And so he meets the three strangers. They're at the door. He invites them in. He gets very, very excited. Okay, and he says, "Come." He said, "What does he say?" Let me tell you what he says. He says he humbles himself before them, and then he says, "Come and rest, and I'll make you a morsel of bread, and just sit and rest up a bit." But lol at Abraham, because he says, "I'll make you a morsel of bread," and he goes and gets somebody to cut him to basically get a calf and chop it up and cook it, and he gets very excited and makes a banquet for the strangers. So he entertained. So the icon shows three angels, if you can see the wings there, and Abraham and his wife Sarah, and the food's on the table. Who's doing that? Is that you? Oh, it's just okay. And so that's the icon of Abraham serving the strangers, and he puts the food down and he just stands there waiting on them. This is Father Abraham, and he's just standing there waiting on them like he's a servant. Okay. And so it brings up in Hebrews. So St. Paul, which is most likely the author of Hebrews, says to people, "Do not forget to entertain strangers, for by so doing some have unwittingly entertained angels." And this is what he's talking about, is Abraham that day entertaining those three angels, and it was the angels that gave them the good news of Isaac's birth. Remember, Abraham was like probably nearly 100 at this point. Okay, and so he actually entertained angels that day. And it's very important to understand that there are times in our lives where we meet people and we don't understand that it is possible that we are also entertaining angels. When we welcome people into our church and we welcome people into our lives, sometimes the impact they have is huge, So we may be entertaining angels as Abraham did unwittingly, and it'll always be a blessing to us. Yeah. And sometimes people who come into our church become servants who do phenomenal stuff in our church. Okay. And if you think about it, you'll know people. You'll think about it and know people, right? You know, somebody's name comes to mind, and she would get upset about hearing it. But Debbie, you know Debbie Armanios? You all know Debbie, right? Phenomenal what she does. It's phenomenal what she does. And it's because she met a Coptic person one day. They were strangers, but through that, she became part of the church, and is phenomenal what she does. And how brilliant is it? And I would call her an angel for sure. So how important is hospitality, you reckon, now? We get in heaven without it? We get in heaven without it? Yeah. Sheeps and goats. Be on the right side of this. Be the sheeps that Jesus says, you know, come and inherit the kingdom that I have for you. So it's always good to remember our church, the Coptic church. Okay, so we pride ourselves on the Coptic church being the church of what? What do we always say? Church of martyrs. The church of martyrs. Yeah. It's the church of martyrs. We celebrate Nowruz constantly. The church of martyrs means that these people died for their faith. That's heavy stuff, eh? They actually died for their faith. Okay. So this is what the church is actually built on. Really, pretty much every Orthodox church has martyrs. Okay, so we're not special in that way. We're special, but we're not special in that way, because every church has its own martyrs. But we are called the Church of Martyrs, and we pride ourselves on that, you know. But then I notice sometimes at church, so we have a what we call a doorman at the back of the church. So when people come in on a Sunday, for example, or whatever else, the doorman comes, and he's kind of doorman, welcoming committee, usher. He's got a few jobs. Doesn't get paid much, but anyway. So kidding, he doesn't get paid anything, yeah? Just so we're clear. Doesn't get paid. No money. All right. So people come in, and he brings them in, and he sits them down, and he has a little bit of a chat with the people at the back. And if they're different or strange, or they haven't seen them before, he'll ask them, you know, oh, hey, what's your name? You know, makes conversation. Okay? And often he's realized that he'll sometimes, like, you know, grab somebody and say, hey, do you mind talking to that new girl that's at the back? Or grab one of the guys, do you mind, like, chatting with the guy, you know, with the beanie on his head or whatever? And people are just like, oh, yeah, I'm not good at that. I'm really uncomfortable. No, I can't talk to strangers. I can't talk to people. I'm really uncomfortable. I'm really introverted. Yeah, right. Okay. And, you know, and they make all the excuses under the sun. Okay. Well, our church is a church of martyrs, for crying out loud. Where people die for their faith, and you can't make yourself uncomfortable for a few minutes and have an awkward conversation with a stranger? Really? I get it. Some people are better at it than others. That's true. Some people have a gift, you know, and I see that. But I think every single one of us needs to take that on board and try. You got to try. Make yourself a little bit uncomfortable. It's not going to kill you. Make yourself a little bit uncomfortable, because it's the right thing to do. Because you making yourself uncomfortable is going to make a difference to that new person that just walked in the back of the church. Okay? And so it's worth it. And that's hospitality. Okay? This Christianity thing, it's not comfortable. It's hard work. Okay? C.S. Lewis said once, and I'm going to kind of paraphrase. He said, when I came to religion, I didn't do it to make me happy, because I knew a bottle of port would make me happy, right? I didn't come to religion. I didn't come to Christianity to make me happy. A bottle of port could have done that, okay? So he says, if you want a religion that's going to make you happy, I don't recommend Christianity. If you're going to make not religion to make you, if you want a religion that's going to make you really comfortable and cozy, and you're going to feel good all the time, and you don't have to do any hard work, he says, Christianity is not for you, because it's hard work. You want to follow the footsteps of Christ? That's hard work. Okay? That means you have to be uncomfortable sometimes. That means you have to have an awkward conversation with a new person. Okay? So you have to be ready to be a little bit uncomfortable. If it wasn't for St. Mark going to Egypt, to a foreign land that was out of his comfort zone, meeting a cobbler, talking to him about Christ, we might be sitting somewhere else tonight. Possibly. Okay? So these meetings between strangers are a big deal, and they have a huge, huge impact. And the meeting between Anianus and St. Mark meant that his whole family got converted, his whole community got converted. This sounds like I'm saying this again. So the idea is you need to be proactive. If we've decided the hospitality is important, then do we need to do something about it? Or just, hey, cool, that was cool. Yeah, I get it. Hospitality is cool. We've got to be nice to people. We've got to be nice to strangers. But no, that's not enough. Now, if you've decided, if you agree that hospitality is important, then guess what? You got to do something about it. You got to be proactive. You got to work at it. You can't just sit back and go, yeah, that was cool. Yeah, that was cool. Right? So you got to actually do something about it. So what do we do about it? If we decide hospitality is important, what are some of the things that we need to do about it? I'm up for suggestions. Yeah, how? By acting. Jonathan! Calling Jonathan! So what are we going to do? Yeah, exactly. That's part of it. You got to speak to people coming in the door. You got to open your eyes and look around. You know, do this experiment one day, because I do weird stuff sometimes for fun. I'll go to the shopping center, I'll walk around, and I won't be shopping. I'll just be looking. I'll just look at people. I just love to observe what people do sometimes. And people especially in shopping centers, I don't know what it is about shopping centers. They're walking and they're like this. And this person could have fallen over and dropped all their shopping bags. And this old man could be struggling with his trolley. And these people are like, oh my goodness, got to get to the deli. Oh my goodness, got to get to the deli. Like, okay. You know, we need to start by just actually looking and seeing the people around us. And where there's a need that you can fulfill, then you do that. So I think that's really important. So be sensitive to other people. Be sensitive to other people's needs. Look around you. See the stranger. See the guy that's sitting alone in the corner. Okay? And then if you start a conversation, introduce them to other people, because sometimes it's tough to take the load all on your own. All right? So be practical. Introduce them to other people, you know, and always follow up. Don't just do it 1 week and 2 weeks and then forget all about him and move on with your life. You got to follow up, because that's really important. So if you're not going to actually, follow through, then, as I said, there is a judgment for that, because we often decide that God is just one thing. We decide that God is just merciful. Yes, God is definitely merciful. But that doesn't mean I'm going to be like, do whatever and be like, God is merciful. Yeah, okay, but he's also just. Okay? Because the same God that said about David, was merciful towards David and said, you know, David has a heart like mine, the same God that walked with Abraham and said, Abraham is my friend, is the same God that flooded the earth. Same God, not different God. Okay? God is always merciful, but is also just. Okay. I think I might try to end. There are other things, but I might try to end with something. And that is the Matthew. So let's just try to end. Let's just try to end this, because I feel like I've been talking for a really long time, and I can see people are starting to fade from me. So let's just read this one more time as a final word to what we have to do. Matthew 25:36. Then the king will say to those on his right hand, "Come, you blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you took me in. I was naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." And the righteous will answer, saying, When did we do these things, Lord? And he will answer them, Inasmuch as you did it to one of the least of these, my brethren, you did it to me. Okay. I wanted to end on that because this just shows that we really do need to step up and do all these things. And you know, even in the liturgy, if you pay attention in the liturgy, we actually, every time we do the liturgy, we actually mention the stranger. And I'll just start with the first words of the liturgy, and I'm expecting you guys to finish it for me, okay? Crown this year with your goodness for the sake of the poor of your people, the widow, the orphan, the stranger, and for our sake, for our eyes are focused upon you, our hope, and seek your holy name. Okay? So we mention the stranger every time we do the Mass, and every time we're standing in the Mass, if you probably turn around and look at the back, there's probably a stranger standing at the back. So next time you're in Mass and you're praying Mass, think about that. Think about that and reach out to the stranger. Okay? And that doesn't obviously mean the stranger that you meet outside of Mass you ignore. Okay? Because that's important too. Okay? Sometimes when you talk to somebody outside, and this has happened to me so many times, it's bizarre. When you talk to somebody outside, you realize how needy they were for a small conversation. You don't know what's happened to them that day. You don't know if maybe you were the only conversation that that person had in the entire day, maybe in the entire week. And a small smile from you, a small hello, how you going, g'day, whatever it is you want to say, can make all the difference in the world. Okay? So St. John Chrysostom, my last quote for the night, and then you can say what you want to say. St. John Chrysostom says this: the one who can't see Christ in his poor brother or sister, the beggar at the door, the stranger, the needy, I'm ad-libbing, but this is pretty much what he says. The poor brother, the stranger, the needy, the person at the door of the church. If you can't see Christ in the person that's outside the door of the church, if you can't see Christ in that needy stranger, brother or sister, then you can never see Christ on the altar. Okay? So that's St. John Chrysostom. Okay. May God give us the grace and the wisdom and the incentive, I suppose, to reach out to not just our friends and our families. Obviously, these relationships are important, but reach out to the people that we see who are needy, who are lonely, who are strangers, who are isolated, who come into our church maybe for a week or two and then leave because they haven't been shown Christ. They haven't had somebody reach out with love and say, hey, welcome. Welcome to my home. Welcome to my life. Let me go take you to the canteen and get you a sandwich. Let me introduce you to a Buna and I'll get 2,000 points. Yeah? Let me do something for you. Let me show you what love is about. Here. Yeah? Because that's our job. Because we're the ambassadors of Christ and that's our job. Okay. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much.
Sorry, Maggie, just a question.
I spoke for way too long on the call of it. I'm really sorry.
Small talks. You're talking to someone, but like.
So like, as in like, I
Like,
walked
what-
in and you're just making small talk with me?
Yeah, I'm not really interested, and I don't really care. I'm doing it.
What do you think? Let's ask people. You want to say something? I can feel it. No, you in the black t-shirt. Yeah.
I think it might mean a lot.
No.
So even if you say like a few words, you might show little energy, but they might appreciate it.
Yeah,
So do it regardless.
I think so. I think so. Anybody else? Gosh, guys, you guys are so encouraging and so cute. Like, really cute. What's that? Somebody say something. Anybody else have anything to say about that? I love they're just pointing at each other. Like, come on, man. Got something to say? Say it. No, we're still on this question. Anybody else got anything to say about it? The small talk one. So he answered it. I love his answer. I think you gotta persevere. And don't you ever do something like sometimes begrudgingly you might do something for somebody that's nice, and then you realize it actually gives you great joy. Do you get what I'm saying? When you feel that somebody appreciates something small you've done, and you can see they appreciate it, it gives you great joy. It encourages you to do something else. Yeah, like I have the best neighbors. Who has good neighbors? I have really great neighbors. I have Theo and Georgina. Theo and Georgina, yes, trust me. It's Theo and Georgina. I'm not making their names up. Theo and Georgina, and their son and daughter are Effie and Nick. Guess what nationality they are? Okay, that was funny, right? Yeah, they're really good neighbors of mine. And you know, it's like when we go away on holidays, Theo takes out the rubbish. When it's Christmas, I get hectic Greek biscuits from Georgina. When I'm screaming the house down because the kids are driving me crazy, they ignore it. They pretend I'm not crazy. Okay, they're really good neighbors, and it's so easy to be nice back. That's the thing, eh? Like when people are nice to you, it's so easy to be nice back. This is, as Christians, I mean, you know, he says to us, what good is it if you love those who love you, because even sinners do that? What good is it? What benefit do you get if you're only good to those who are good to you? Yeah. So it's not saying don't be good to people, but it's saying we got to go that extra mile. So sometimes it has to hurt. It has to hurt. Sometimes it has to be a bit awkward. Sometimes you're not all that invested initially. But I think if you do it and you try wholeheartedly from your heart because you want to do the right thing, I really believe God is faithful. I don't know. I think you still have to persevere. So I think it makes all the difference. Yeah, I agree with you. Give it a shot. Yeah.
Is there any other questions?
Yeah, I wish Nabuna was here to answer these questions.
I have a question.
Oh no, here we go.
What if you don't want to, I know this might be an excuse, but what if I don't want to make the person feel uncomfortable by, oh, hi, come look, this is your first time here, look at Abuna, you know?
Look at Abuna.
Or like, come meet Abuna, like, you know, it's their first time at church.
So in this church, it's Abuna Paul, right? Paul Fanus and Abuna Paula. Yeah? And Abuna Mina. Are there only three? Did I get that applause? Is that applause for me or somebody else? Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure they'd be so keen if you went up to someone and said, look at Abuna. Hey, look. No, it's introduced. Look, you know, it's so much easier. You know, when a person comes to the church and they're a stranger, they've actually come. I mean, they've done half the work for us, right? You know, they're already here. They're at the doorstep. For goodness sake, they're at the door. So introducing them to Abuna is like, it kind of makes sense, yeah? You know? And you know, it's not a bad idea, you know, if you have it in your heart that, you know, you get it, you agree, you know, after this woman's been blah, 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 that you agree that hospitality is important, right? If you have it in your heart and you go, yes, obviously, clearly, you know, hospitality is important. The Bible really says that. If you have that in your heart, what's wrong with kind of coming up with a scenario in your head, you know, or having a group that's for hospitality, right? So, you know, pick a few people that you know who are good at talking to, particularly good at talking to strangers. I think it's something we all need to do to a certain extent, but I do accept that there are some people who are just natural at like my kids laugh at me because I'll be walking down the road and anybody walking past, I'll just have to say something. I'll just get, and sometimes it's really awkward because sometimes people look at you like, crazy lady, alert, talking to me, why? You know, and I'll just say things like, oh, I love your socks, you know, a great hat, oh, it's hot. You know, if it's an old person, old people love it when you stop and talk to them. So yeah, some people have a, you know, a knack for that sort of thing, but just practice it in your head. Just practice it. Oh, what do I go up and say? Hey, my name is, oh, what's your name? Oh, that's a cool name. So where are you from? Oh, how did you make it here? Yeah. Oh, really? Where do you live? Do you realize conversation leads to more conversation? Questions. And the trick is you ask people questions, because guess what, guys? We love to talk about ourselves. We love to talk about ourselves. Yeah? Do that trick next time you meet somebody new. Don't say anything about yourself. Just constantly ask them questions about them. They'll answer and they'll be happy. And they'll just keep talking and talking and talking, because we actually love to talk. Especially me, right? We love to talk about ourselves. So if you ask us questions, we'll answer and we'll answer, we'll answer. And people love that. So just, have maybe a small kind of conversation in your head before you approach that person. Does that kind of help? Yeah, just small talk can sometimes be tedious, but very necessary. You all started off as strangers at one point. We all start off as strangers. Yeah? Okay. Why is there no Abuna in the house, guys? Oh, is Abuna in there? Why isn't he answering questions? I need you to come and answer questions. I don't like answering questions. Anyway, is he actually with somebody or is he hiding? He's hiding. Hey guys, look at Abuna. Look. Look at Abuna. What was that? Sorry? Oh, were you listening in? I'm in big trouble, aren't I? I'm going to be in big trouble. Any other questions for Abuna? Yeah. Give her the mic. Give her the mic.
Do you have any advice, or what would you say if you kind of so you go and welcome someone and they're kind of cold, or I don't know, they're not interested in talking, or they're even rude? Do you have any advice, maybe?
Abuna? Come on. I've answered too. Me answer
Yeah,
first.
yeah.
Oh my God, this competition. I'm going to lose for sure. Guys, that's Abuna, by the way. Do I get 2,000? Church gets 2,000 points. Look, I think it's about perseverance, okay? And if you you don't know why they're being that way. Like, I'll tell you a small story. I met a mum at school. I got lots of stories because I'm old enough for lots of stories, right? So I met a mum at school when my daughter was in primary school. And we got to talking, and she was half Coptic, half Armenian, okay? And we got to talking, she found out I was Coptic. Oh, what are you doing for Christmas? Going to church. What are you doing for Easter? Going to church. What are you doing on Sunday? Going to church. She got the gist. And then she goes to me, geez, you Coptic people, you're like, really so obsessed with church and blah, blah, blah. I said, no, it's really nice. I love to go to church. We're a family and all this sort of stuff. She goes, I've been to the Coptic church. I said, oh, really? She goes, yeah. She goes, I walked in once and I walked out and never went back. I said, why is that? And she said to me, I walked into the church, I sat in the back, and an older lady came running up to her, never seen her before, so she was a stranger in the church. And she went up to her and said to her, oh, you need to cover your shoulders, you're not dressed appropriately for church. That's a not thing to do with hospitality. Don't do that. Just don't do that, yeah? So if she ever went back to church, like if I convinced her to come back to church, she would probably be, do you get what I'm saying? A little bit hesitant. So you don't know the experiences that she's had. Do you see what I'm saying? So don't worry about it. You grow a thick skin, like, be thick skinned. My husband is, Abuna knows my husband well, and my husband is very thick skinned, and he's met all sorts of people because remember I said the doorman before? I was talking about the doorman at the church. Yeah, that's that guy. And he had to grow a thick skin, and you got to make people give excuses for people. Yeah. So see with my friend that I just told you about, that would be her excuse. She was hesitant because she's been treated badly before in the same place. So if she comes back, she's going to be a little bit aloof. So try and get some help. Like, there's nothing to say if you're making conversation, you can't be like, oh, hey, Marina, come and meet, and that helps. Yeah? And it's about trying. It's about putting in the effort, you know, working at it, knowing that God will bless the little efforts, you know. I mean, really, sorry, I end up talking way too much, Abuna. I got to find a solution to this. One of the things is Jesus blesses the little, you know, God blesses the little that you have. You know, come with your 5 loaves and 2 fish and he blesses it. Come with your awkwardness and he blesses it. Come with your small talk and he'll bless it. And that will grow. But your heart has to be, you know, for it. Your heart has to be open and welcoming. And I think God blesses that. But it's about providing the need. You see the need in people and you got to do something to provide it, you know. And Jesus will always respond to that. So, you know, when the multitude were following Jesus and the disciples were like, oh man, these guys have been following us all day long. They're hungry and they're tired. You got to send them away. You got to send them to get food and rest. And they've been following us for a really long time. And Jesus goes, oh yeah, good guys. Yeah. They are hungry and they are tired. But we're not going to send them away. There's a need. We've got to provide. Yeah? So it's about you doing your best and then leaving God to kind of carry through. I suppose that's just my answer, my long-winded answer. Can you?
I'll just basically reiterate what she said. Okay. I'll reiterate what she said. Basically, you be sensitive to the people that you're serving. So always be sensitive to the personalities that you're dealing with. So approach people with meekness, you know, and be sensitive that they may be sensitive. They may be shy, they may be whatever. There's a million different types of personalities out there. Assume nothing about their personality. Be conscious of their personality and then work towards that. So you're working around them, you're trying to adapt to them, not make them adapt to you. So don't make them adapt to your personality, you adapt to their personality. And you have that as a general rule in life, you get along with much more people.
So true. So true. Okay. I think Andrew, did you have something to say? Or you're all good? Oh, okay, cool. Okay, cool. I'm done. I'm done because you guys look like you're done, so I'm done. Okay.
I would like to thank Maggie for coming all the way and giving us that wonderful talk. So before we stand up for prayer, we do have a few announcements. Our food, as usual, is at the back. We do have volleyball as well. And just a reminder about Queensland. Queensland is still happening at the moment, but we still do need